Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the agenda review meeting for this, the 20th day of September 2023. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mercer? Here. Commissioner Yates?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Birdsong? And Mayor Dantzler?
Here.
Here. All right, we'll have an invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a presentation, National Hispanic Heritage Month. That will be, we'll just do that Monday night, right?
Yes, sir.
And what about the State Housing Initiative Partnership?
So we'll do that on Monday night. This is, we have to file an annual report
Okay.
each year. So this is, Diane's just gonna give you an update on that. This closes out the, get my numbers here right. I believe it's the 2021 year closes out, and it also includes the interim report for the 21-22 ship year. So she'll do that on Monday evening.
Okay. All right, and then we'll have, we don't have any developments of note. We have the minutes, and we'll have those Monday night. The mayor's statement, which is the statement that will be read into the official meeting on Monday night. On its second reading, is there anything new that we need to talk about?
I don't believe so this evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. I'll do a very brief presentation Monday evening, very consolidated from, or condensed from what I did last meeting.
All right, and same thing with the budget?
Yes, sir.
All right. Comments from the audience. Then we have ordinance second reading. We have none. Consent agenda. Give us a little brief summary.
12A, this is purchase of some vehicles. So within the building division, we are replacing some vehicles and also purchasing vehicles in anticipation of hiring staff that have been approved for the fiscal year 24 budget. As you all know, Union Auto Worker, the United Auto Workers Union, their strike is certainly going to anticipate to have an impact on the availability of vehicles. I just got an email minutes before walking in here from one of the fleet folks that we work with, kind of talking about the impact of that. But beyond that, we're still seeing a delay in being able to acquire vehicles. So this is a request to purchase these directly from Stingray Chevrolet using funds that are within the building division.
Okay. And the Cultural Art Advisory Committee appointments, that's what we do, so. Yeah,
just a quick point on this. They had a seat 7 that was opened up, and they did an advertisement for that. Marilyn Rackelman is who's selected for that. There's also a need to do an official reappointment of Holly Scoggins to her seat. She has been serving in that seat for the first year, but we need to, just due to an error on our side with the paperwork, need to go ahead and do an official reappointment for her for the final 2 years of her term.
Okay. And the resolution first reading, ratifying the city manager's authority to execute amendments pertaining to Florida Commerce.
So this is some grants that were made available through the CDBG MIT process, the mitigation grant program they have. We have 3 of those grants, but 2 in particular, number 18 and number 19. When they were authorized, they authorized Mike Herr specifically to be able to sign for those in the amendments. Obviously, Mr. Herr's not here to sign for those, so this just amends those to allow for the city manager or designee to sign those. So I'll be actually able to execute the necessary amendments with that.
Okay. The business impact estimate policy.
So this is part of our legislative efforts that came out of last session. Senate Bill 170, Chapter 2023-309 of the Laws of Florida requires that we now prepare business impact estimates before adoptions of certain municipal ordinances. And these are, in your fact sheet, it outlines what this business impact estimate or statement needs to include within it. It does not apply to every ordinance that we do. So things that it does not apply to include ordinances that are required for compliance with state or federal law, ordinances relating to debt, ordinances relating to the adoption of budgets or revenue sources, adoptions of ordinances required to implement a contract or agreement, any emergency ordinances such as we do during the hurricane season, procurement ordinances, and more specifically, any ordinances that implement growth policy, planning, and land development regulations. So the zoning and land use things that come before you, those won't be required to have a business impact statement. They also don't apply to any ordinances that were required to implement the Florida Building Code or the Florida Fire Prevention Code. So we've drafted a business impact estimate policy, which is attached to Resolution R2353. Included within that policy, it would also require that private parties, so somebody coming in that wants to propose a request or sponsor a new non-exempt municipal ordinance, so it doesn't fall within those categories I just mentioned, that is going to require a business impact estimate, that those can be assigned at the expense of that person that is making that request is a pass-through charge equal to what the city would incur if we had to go out and do the research to create that study or that estimate. But it does give the authority to the city commission to waive that pass-through charge if need be. So in short terms, somebody comes in and they want to do something that's going to require business impact, that requires staff time, energy, resources to complete that. We can actually charge that person for those fees. The commission at the same time can waive that. We have to begin doing business impact estimates effective October 1. So I'm going to share with you when we get to one of the ordinances coming up what that looks like. But may know, certainly you recognize within your fact sheets now, there is a new clause within there, a new statement that pertains to Senate Bill 250. This is the hurricane impact statement that we have now that carries through October of '24. You'll also now see this business impact estimate section within fact sheets where it is necessary.
Yeah, I just have one. Anybody have a question? I just want to ask you about the impact fees. The estimate, we can do that in-house?
Yes, yeah. There's no real, it's, be careful how I say this. It's kind of consistent with so much of what we see come out of the legislature that there's not a hard, fast, this is what it has to look like and how it has to be phrased and the process you have to go through. It gives us some parameters of what it needs to include, summary of what that ordinance is, an estimate of the economic impact on the private for-profit businesses, an estimate of the compliance costs that they may incur, an estimate or an indication of any new charges or fees that would be imposed upon them, an estimate of any regulatory costs and revenues, and then a good faith estimate of the number of businesses that it's likely to impact. So, give you an example. The ERU ordinance that we just did, where we reduced the ERU multiplier for multifamily, that would require a business impact estimate. Now, in all reality, that's going to be a very favorable estimate because it lowered the ERU for those businesses. If we were going from a 0.60 ERU on multifamily to a 1.0 ERU, then you'd have to go in and calculate that out.
I have a question.
Yes, Tracy.
How long do you think it would take to do this? How much are you going to tie up a staff's time, and how much how much is that going to be? Do you have to hire another person in order to do all these impact?
Well, I'm going to defer to Eric on this with his staff, but I will say that the frequency of these, you all consider a number of ordinances throughout the year. I would venture that the vast majority of what comes before the commission is in that exempt category. But when we're doing fees and charges that are specific to businesses, connection fees, those types of things, we're going to have to do that. And that would be likely if we were doing new connection fees for water sewer. We would factor that within our study with Raftelis or whoever the consultant was that was doing that for us. On smaller ones, Eric, I mean, we just did one on the alcohol ordinance amendment.
Yeah, I think that, as you indicated, most of them we will be able to do in-house, and they are estimates. They are generally what we do is a positive impact in terms of impacts to businesses. And so in that regard, I don't think, we need to hire somebody in order to implement this, but there will be the one-offs where we simply won't have the expertise, and we'll have to engage somebody who's an expert like Raftelis to produce that for us. That's where the cost really would come in.
And I would say that the statute doesn't expressly says that it's not requiring municipalities to hire consultants in order to do these. We may choose to do that, but it's not requiring that. Again, along with the city manager said, it's sort of it's, vague. I think the context in which this all came up, if you recall last legislative session, there was what they referred to as the very, very broad preemption bill. They call it the mother of all preemption bills. And included in that bill was a very detailed impact estimate requirement that was much more draconian than what ultimately we're seeing here. Well, that bill didn't move. But this year, the part of that bill that ultimately did make it through was what we're talking about. And the league was sort of neutral on it because they were very successful in getting all these carve-outs and exemptions, that, well, this ordinance doesn't have to do it, and this one doesn't, and this one doesn't. So I think what you're seeing is the very watered-down part of the legislation that took a little bit of traction in 2022, but ultimately got adopted in 2023. I think that's, if I had to, I can't surmise what the legislature's intent was. Certainly, you all can do that better than me. You're much more connected to that. But it appears that this is something that was a compromise, kind of, sort of. And the league did have a lot of input, which is why there's so many exemptions.
And I would suggest, Commissioner Mercer, until we go through the better part of a year and see truly what that impact is, if it becomes something that's very laborious and requires additional staff time, I would think it would be within our prerogative to assess what our processing fees are. If we have to bring on additional staff to fulfill those types of obligations and adjust our fees to help carry that cost, then that would be something we would look at. But I think it's very early in the game to contemplate what it might be.
Yeah, how do you determine how many businesses you're going to impact, like businesses,
Well,
et
I think
cetera?
we'll be able to give you an example of that when we get to the alcohol ordinance.
Okay.
I think it turns out that we have that one on the agenda for Monday night, and it's a good,
actually, it is, yeah.
Coming
case
up.
study. Yeah.
So I'll ask a question as well, and I think I know the answer to this, but is there any liability yet, or we just don't know? Like, if we tell them
Well-
it's gonna be X and it's Y, are we subject to any liability there?
I'll defer to John on this, but I will say that the bigger liability is that if you don't do it, then you have not fulfilled that obligation, and you can be subject to liabilities in that regard.
Well, and as the city manager has noted, if you don't do it, your ordinance could be subject to challenge, and it could be that a court would agree that the ordinance, because you didn't comply with that law, was not reasonable or was, arbitrary, and then you're subject to legal fees up to $50,000 if someone were successful in challenging an ordinance. So it's important that procedurally we do this, which is why we've suggested that it's become part of our policy. But more.
Of accuracy,
In
though.
terms of accuracy, our view is that it's a good faith, honest effort based on the available information that we can reasonably obtain. And I don't see how a court would use that or allow for that. Of course, we don't have any precedent yet, but it seems to me that if we continue and engage in a good faith effort, honest, reasonable work effort, and use what available information we have, then we would be in compliance with the statute. The way it's worded, and it's very much caged in terms of, or couched in terms of estimates. So,
Yeah. I think that if there was some horrific commission out there, which you, ladies and gentlemen, certainly are not, that wanted to do something nefarious, and, they'd probably have some exposure. The funny thing is that I would venture to say that we already do this. We don't put it into a fact sheet per se, but any ordinance that comes before you is vetted out at great lengths amongst staff, with John's involvement and outside folks as well, to make sure what we're doing makes sense and is in the best interest. So,
well, and in particular, the connection fee example, we went through great lengths, as you should, with the consultants and information and data in order to verify, justify, and buttress, those legislative actions that you take. So there is empirical data, there's evidence that supports your decision in case it's ever challenged. So.
One more question. If they don't agree with your estimate or your, is there something in the ordinance that says they can get another opinion, or
No.
do they? Okay.
There's nothing in the resolution that we've drafted.
So it would be up to them
It would, I would
to do
presume
their
that.
own research after that?
I would presume that to be the case, Commissioner Mercer, but at this point, as the city manager said, we're just sort of early on in this, and I think as we move forward, if we tackle a particularly difficult subject, we may very well want to get an expert or someone that has special skill sets that help us beyond just the staff level. That may be something that we want to do in the event that issue becomes a little bit more, a little more acute. But for now, I think it's important to have the policy in place before October 1. Some communities are doing it by ordinance. I think it can be done appropriately by resolution, which is what we have suggested for Monday.
Any more questions? All right, we'll move on to ordinance's first reading, 02352.
So this is an ordinance that's just been heard by the Planning Commission a couple weeks back. This deals with alcohol sales and service on Sundays. This falls within Chapter 21 of the code. In 2018, there was an amendment to the code, or a modification on the hours of sale and service that amended sale and service of beer and wine in package sales, so at a liquor store or a convenience store or Publix or grocer or whatever. That was amended and changed. Originally, it was from 12 noon on Sundays to 12 midnight on Sundays, and that was adjusted to be 7 a.m. on Sunday to 2 a.m. the Monday next. So it would be the same for beer and wine as it was every other day. So a couple things have come along since then. 2021, during COVID period, Senate Bill 148 was signed into law, which allows restaurants to sell and or deliver alcoholic beverages prepared by the restaurant in sealed containers, which is, in a nutshell, package sales. That provision allows this to be part of the establishment's consumption via their on-premises alcohol license, but in reality, it is a package sale. Several municipalities around us over the years have revised their hours for sales and service on Sundays. That's a mouthful. So right now, Bartow, Haines City, Lakeland, Lake Wales, Mulberry, and Polk City permit on-premise, so in a restaurant, lounge, bar, whatever, prior to noon on Sundays. Davenport, Eagle Lake, Dundee, Eagle Lake, Fort Meade, Frostproof, Haines City, Lake Hamilton, Lakeland, Lake Wales, and Polk City permit package sales of spirits for off-premise consumptions on Sundays. So what's being proposed, and I think the slide that's on your screen is probably the best way to explain it. Right now, if you're looking to purchase in a business and take home or elsewhere your package sales, you can only do beer and wine on Sundays now, and that is between the hours of 7 a.m. and 2 a.m. Monday next. What's being proposed for package sales is simply to add spirits to that. And what that would do is allow any of our liquor stores or similar to operate in full service on Sundays. With respect to on-site consumption, so a restaurant, a bar, whatever, even a golf course for that matter, you can do presently beer, wine, and spirits beginning at noon on Sundays until midnight. What's being proposed is that on-premises consumption would allow for beer, wine, and spirits beginning at 7 a.m. on Sunday and ending at midnight on Sunday. This really benefits our restaurants that want to do Sunday brunches, a champagne brunch or Bloody Marys or whatever their beverage of special is. Some of those that are front the lakes that have a lot more activity in the mornings, again, golf courses and those types of places would fall within that as well. One caveat with this, and it deals with the on-premises consumption, going along with that 7 a.m. until 12 midnight on Sundays. If Sunday happens to be New Year's Eve, The hours for Sunday on-site consumption are extended to 2 a.m. Monday next, only when New Year's Eve falls on a Sunday, or likewise when January 1st falls on a Monday. And that's because typically they are still in business operating at that time. So this was heard by the Planning Commission. No comments. It was a unanimous move it forward for City Commission. And again, it is in compliance with, or not in any way in conflict with Chapter 2023-304, which is our hurricane-related impacts. If you look in your fact sheet under the conclusion, right below that is the financial impact, business impact estimate. And it notes that although exempt from the posting and providing of a business impact estimate, the following is submitted in order to demonstrate compliance. So this is one of those cases where we don't have to do this because of the type of ordinance it is, but we went ahead and did this just to demonstrate our compliance with that. So 2352 extends the hours for the sale of on-premises consumption, as well as the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premises consumption on Sunday by establishments that have the proper licensure to do so. There's no anticipated compliance costs with this. The businesses don't have to do anything additional. It is anticipated that affected businesses will have a positive economic benefit because they can operate where right now they cannot. There are no new charges or fees associated with the ordinance, nor any regulatory costs or revenue accruing. And Commissioner Mercer, we note in here the estimated number of businesses affected by the ordinance is 96. And that's based upon 9 package and 87 on-premises consumption licenses that we have records of and knowledge of here within the city. So that's how we would look at that. Okay, how many restaurants do you have? How many package service stores do you have that this would apply to, based upon how they're licensed today? Obviously, we probably have more restaurants than 87, but you don't go to McDonald's or Taco Bell and buy a beer. At least last time I checked, you could. So,
hey, T, just if I could chime in, just to kind of follow up on Commissioner Mercer's question about staff time. If I had to venture a guess, drafting this, which was our first effort at drafting one, probably took 15 or 20 minutes of John Murphy's time.
At least an hour.
Oh, an hour? Okay. See that on the-
3.
Oh, 5 minutes.
3 hours.
we got billed for an hour.
I couldn't help myself.
And one of our staff members, Heather, did the research on how many on-site premises consumption licenses we have record of. She had to go to a state website, DBPR, and pull that information. That probably took 20 minutes and probably 5 minutes of my time to review, to give you an idea.
And I probably studied it for 3 or 4 hours myself, so. But that's a good synopsis of how that business impact applies, but at the end of the day, what we're proposing is, make it the same every day of the week. It's consistent with what most of the municipalities around us have done. It puts our businesses on an equal playing field with everybody else, offers them an opportunity for more sales, more service. Very business, pro-business in my opinion.
Is that it?
Yep, that's that on that one. And then 2357, this is just establishing a CDD. You've seen a number of these over the years, but this is for the Peace Creek Village Community Development District. So this is down off of Old Bartow Road. AJ, can you go to the next slide on this one if you would? So give you an idea, if you see where it says Old Bartow Road, I don't have a mouse up here, but it's generally that area there that she just ran the mouse over. And trying to 95.38 acres, they're going to establish a CDD there to help with the cost of their infrastructure improvements. Those are estimated at just shy of $16 million. The CDD will consist of a 5-member board of supervisors. Those will initially be the developer of the property and then ultimately transfer over to the residents. At the time of this application or this petition, we have 7 CDDs operating within the Winter Haven area. Those include Lake Ashton, Lakeside Landings, which is up off of State Road 544, Harmony at Lake Eloise, Villamar is a CDD that we've done a number of amendments on over the years, Lucerne Park, Pollard Road, and Peace Creek Reserve. Just a quick point on this, this infrastructure, they'll bond for this. We are not, the city is not obligated or assigned any of that debt. That is all, goes back to them. The same thing with the county, any debts will stay with the CDD and cannot be assigned to the city, the county, or the state.
Questions?
And this particular ordinance is also exempt from the business impact estimate as well.
And then the only other thing I have, Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor and Commissioners, for Monday is I will, under 18A, offer my third quarter report, just in written format for your, just for your information and records.
Okay, all right. City Clerk, emergency matters not received for the agenda. Motion to adjourn.
One quick thing, Mayor Pro Tem, just a reminder, tomorrow morning is the 13th Annual Mayor's Roundtable. So, not sure who's all scheduled to attend that. That's from 9 a.m., anticipated to be over at 11:30. That is at the Polk State College Center for Public Safety. That is the one down off of Winter Lake Road, headed towards Lakeland. Again, beginning at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So,
I
All
have-
right, I'll be there.
I will be on vacation next week. I'll probably be leaving out sometime on Thursday, so and I'll be the whole week. And I'll be visiting friends in Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee. And if I get homesick, I may be home before then.
have a safe trip.
Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
I'll miss the Monday's meeting though, on the budget.
All right. Anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.